Hello and good evening. JC here from We Are Arsenal. I hope everyone is doing well and dandy. Today, I bring you a brand new tactical analysis show joined by three very special guests who are going to help me break down 5 more midfield players that Arsenal are being currently linked with in the January transfer window. And the first guest helping me to do this evening is a new panelist on the channel, Mike. How are we doing, my friend?
Living the nightmare, just like everyone right now.
Good man. Well, look, thank you very much for putting some time aside to spend with me this evening. Really, really do appreciate it.
And yeah, my pleasure, Jake. I'm a big fan of you and all the things that you are doing, and I'm just happy to be here.
Good. Well, as long as you enjoy this evening and you're well behaved, you're more than welcome to come on again in the future. But up next, we've got Keith, a regular on the channel. How are we doing this evening, my friend?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm better than you by the sounds of things. But yeah, end of a long week. I've as a side note, I noticed that Liverpool's training ground reopened today, so that's nice of them. Didn't see that coming at all. But other than that, thank you for having me back again. I'm much like a bad penny, but it's appreciated. Should be fun tonight.
Yes, it should be fun. There's one name on the list that everyone is quite excited about. And funny that you mentioned Liverpool, because this evening was supposed to be the Liverpool review video, and it's been replaced with this, which I'm just as excited about. Neil, thank you very much for coming back. Once again, a regular on the show. You've got a very important message on your screen as well, I can see.
Yes, definitely. I woke up to seeing this, and I think it's just absolute class from the club. I don't know if you say that I'm a special guest anymore, man. I should just bring my bag and just set up a tent under We Are the Arsenal. I'm on here so much, But thank you again, Jake, for having me on. And there's my guy right there, my fellow Floridian. The Judge.
Absolutely, Judge, who is also a regular on the channel, unable to make it this evening, but he will be joining us in the chat. One thing that we'll be doing a little bit different this evening is we're going to jump into the first slide before I ask you the typical question on who you would prefer to sign. And anyone who is in the chat at the moment, do get your answers in now, because I'm quite keen to see if anyone changes their mind after reviewing the information that is available. So here are the 5 players that we'll be analysing in great detail this evening. And I'm going to just run through them very, very quickly whilst you guys sit there and think about who your number 1 signing is, followed by a backup signing if the first one doesn't work out for some reason or another. We've got Bruno Guimaraes first over at Lyon, Brazilian, quite friendly with Gabriel Martinelli, coming into his peak at 24, can play a variety of different positions. Edu was quite interested in the player prior to him signing for Lyon. Unfortunately, the timing wasn't quite right, but he could be available now for around £38 million. We've got Denis Zakaria, who's actually had interest from the likes of Juventus, Bayern Munich, Barcelona and Real Madrid. Out of contract in the summer, so there's an opportunity for a club to pick him up quite cheap in January, or even sign him on a pre-contract. Also can play a variety of different positions and coming into his peak. Next up, we've got Boubacar Kamara of Marseille, a club that we've got a good relationship with. Saliba and Guendouzi currently out there on loan, much younger than the previous 2 and very good defensively, and can also play a variety of positions. Also out of contract in the summer, so could potentially be picked up quite cheaply. Chelsea said to be interested, among other giant European clubs. Wijnaldum, formerly of the Premier League with Liverpool, isn't quite getting the game time that he requires at the moment. Much older than the rest of the bunch, and it is believed that he could come in on loan for 6 months if Arsenal aren't able to sign the required midfield player. And last but not least, Bissouma. A little bit of off-field antics, to put it politely, at the moment, although he is getting game time. Not been linked with Arsenal so much recently, but was heavily linked with Arsenal back in the summer. And many fans, including Brighton fans, joked that Arsenal turned up with £50 million for Bissouma and came home with Ben White. I think the joke's on them with the season that he's had so far. But his contract also not too far next summer, out of contract. So 30, 40 million, something like that potentially. So those are the 5 players that we'll be looking to review today. Get your answers in the chat now. I'm coming to you first, Mike, because you're literally underneath me on screen. Who is your number 1 signing and backup signing, and why?
Bruno's my number 1 signing. I mean, he is extraordinary. Coming in at 24, he's right in that, at the top of that age level that we're looking at right now for the club. So he'd be on the cusp of being a leader, a big brother to some of the younger players like Gabby Martinelli and Smith, and of course Saka, et cetera, Nuno. I just think that this guy can do it all. He sprays the ball around like Granit Xhaka does. He can tackle like a monster. He covers so much ground. And he just has an exciting feel to his play. I can't see him as a defensive midfielder. I'd see him more as a, all action kind of player. So he would, if he partners with Partey, he's going to push him back a bit, but he'd be my first. And second, I think Zakaria would be my second pick. And I can go into that a little deeper later, because I don't know if you wanted me to go into depth on Bruno just yet.
We'll get into it. There, as you've all seen, lots of numbers to analyse together, information to digest and explain to anyone watching, either live now or back as a video, as many do. Neil, you've had the information as well, just like Mike, prior to coming on today's show.
Mm-hmm.
What are your feelings? What are your thoughts?
I really like Guimaraes. I really like Bruno. I think he should be the number 1 target in terms of for the midfield. As a backup, I really like Kamara, man. I've actually watched him play for Marseille, and the guy is explosive. He's always all over the pitch. I'm not too familiar with Zakaria. I'm not sure if I'm even saying his name correctly, but not too familiar with him. I've never seen him play, but I've seen Kamara play, and I've seen Bruno play as well. I do glimpse the French league here and there sometimes, and reason why I watch Marseille is to see Guendouzi and Saliba play, just with the hope that they may come back to the team one day. So yeah, man, I think they would just slot right in to this team and be immediately effective.
Yes, and we don't have as many French players as we once did at Arsenal anymore. So that core has slowly gone. Will it return? We don't know. Keith, talk to me, my friend. What are you thinking on this?
Number 1, the real Bruno. Don't accept any cheap imitations.
Any crossbar hitting imitations.
This guy is the absolute nuts. We were talking earlier about Declan Rice.
Yes.
But from what I've seen of what we're going to call our Bruno, hopefully, he has got the lot. He breaks things up efficiently. He's another one. He doesn't go to ground very, very much, only when necessary. The thing I really like about him, and one of the things that really makes him an upgrade on Xhaka, is he's got that little burst of pace over 5 yards, break through the lines, and his passing through the channels is absolutely amazing, as well as his long-range passing. I think the guy's got the absolute lot, so he's absolutely top of the pile for me, but obviously we'll go into more depth on all of these in a little while. Regarding my number 2 choice, I'm sat somewhere between, I'm going to call him Denis, because I'm not sure if it's supposed to be Zakaria or Zakaria, or
Zakaria, I think.
Zakaria, Denis and Kamara. I'm somewhere between the middle of those two. I like Kamara because he looks very much no nonsense. He reminds me an awful lot of Calvin Phillips, and a little bit of our old invisible wall. He doesn't seem to do a huge amount in the more forward third of the pitch, but he's very much no nonsense. He breaks things up well and he moves the ball along. And he's got the skills when he needs them as well. So somewhere between those two is number 2 for me at the moment. But I'm interested to see if my mind will be changed at any point.
Yes, and that's one of the bits of fun that we have during these shows, is that once we all kind of start talking to each other, trying to convince each other, because maybe one of us doesn't agree that this player is better than the other one, it's good to see if we do change our minds come the end of the show. And one thing that I was very surprised about when I put these slides together is just how good Kamara's numbers actually are. Let's not take away from the fact that he plays in the French league, because so does Bruno. And his numbers are outstanding. So a couple of little comments in the chat. One gentleman mentioning that he would like Bruno, another Kamara, seconded to Zakaria. So Bruno definitely seems to be the one that most people want. And with Ainsley Maitland-Niles going out pretty much officially today, I don't know if you guys have watched Arteta's press conference today.
No, I haven't yet.
But he basically says that they're going to be looking at bringing someone in. He doesn't... Yeah. He's normally... Mike, you've seen it, haven't you? He normally, when he talks about transfers, he's normally like, "Nope, we're not going to talk about it. Nope." But today he was like,
doesn't talk about anything. He normally is, "How are you doing, Mikel? I'm fine." But he was vibrant. He was happy to be there. He's like, "I'm so happy to be out of my house." I couldn't believe the things that he was mentioning in this press conference. I mean, not that I want him to get COVID all the time, but I do like this. I do like this Arteta a lot. I mean, post-COVID Arteta comes back, gives you a lot of information, a lot of hope, and he told us a good deal about his plans, and I really like the way that he talked about Maitland-Niles and you know, it's a shame that he's got to move on at this point, but he talked to him about, you know, the opportunity, told him he wanted him to stay for a bit and see how things go before AFCON, and then they would evaluate, and he's a man of his word. He evaluated. Maitland-Niles found an opportunity for himself, and he basically said it's a done deal. Yeah,
absolutely. And what excited me was, as you said, you know, he was really vibrant today. He didn't beat around the bush with his answers and didn't want to kind of talk about things. He was very, very clear. So you'd like to think that, given Maitland-Niles is pretty much a done deal, Arsenal have to have something lined up. They can't be that naive, surely, to not have something already lined up and allow a player to go. Me and Neil were talking about this the other day. It's like, you know, spending money before you've got it and then you lose your job. It would be absolutely bonkers to do something like that. Comment coming in here from KCO. Arteta, quiet guy regarding transfers. Wouldn't let... Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely indeed. Okie dokie. So on screen at the minute, we've got some heat maps. Something that Mike suggested that would be quite useful during today's transfer show is having a little look at the heat maps of the current two midfield players at Arsenal, because I think most people would agree that whoever we do sign will more than likely slot in alongside Thomas Partey once he returns from the African Cup of Nations. But until that point, he will probably play alongside Granit Xhaka. So for the purpose of analysing today's slides, I'm going to bring a picture up on screen just very, very quickly. Hopefully has that worked?
Not yet.
Nope, that hasn't worked. Let me grab that one instead. Great technical difficulties during a show, just what you want. There we go. There we go. So we've got Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey on screen at the moment. Not the busiest of heat maps compared to the ones that you've just seen on screen. Thomas Partey definitely looking the more advanced of the two. And maybe the thinking here from Arteta is to maybe sign a slightly more defensively minded player in order to allow the freedom for Thomas Partey to kind of push on and express what he can do in a more free-flowing number 8 type role, as opposed to the one that he's playing in now, where he's quite limited when having to cover the problems that Xhaka causes, for example. That's me putting it politely. Okie dokie. So Keith, I'm going to come to you first. A lot of information on screen, some really, really busy heat maps, especially for some of the players that we've just mentioned. Talk me through your thoughts. What excites you? What concerns you? What do we need? What do we already have?
The one on the left excites me massively. How many miles is that geezer putting in a game? Bruno, that's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, that's just this season as well, mind.
Absolutely bonkers. Presumably Wijnaldum's is like that because he hasn't got as many minutes, I would think.
No, that's exactly it.
You know, I mean, you can't discount that entirely. And you look at, he's got two spots of red just advanced from the centre circle there and on the right-hand side of it. Again, like we said before, it's kind of occupying the sort of space that Saka and Odegaard would occupy, and also Partey. I'm kind of discounting him a little bit at the moment, not entirely, but I'll probably say more on that a little bit later. Denis's one looks like it would suit us to play alongside Partey because it's predominantly in the defensive half.
Yes.
But just Bruno's heat map, I love that.
It's ridiculous.
Mental.
It is ridiculous. And Neil, what are your thoughts, my friend?
My thoughts are the fact that Wijnaldum's heat map looks busier than Partey and Granit Xhaka's put together. And he has like very little game time. That's crazy. So imagine if he does have the game time, it's probably gonna match probably first 3 there. But again, another alien you pulled out on us here, Jake. Bruno is a friggin' monster. Look at that heat map, man. Even Zakaria and Kamara, they're still up there, but he's deep red. Like you could see he's stomping all over that pitch. He's not in one position for too long, clearly.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, I've been watching a lot of interviews recently, watching other pods and reading blogs here and there, and everyone's got him down as this like really defensively minded midfield player who's going to play as a single pivot, allowing, say, for example, an Odegaard and Partey to push on, or maybe play as a double pivot, allowing Odegaard the freedom to do what he needs to do. But when you look at that heat map there, it suggests otherwise. It really does suggest otherwise.
He's going to take over, mate. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, it's a completely different story that heat map's telling you. So
absolutely. But look, let's not take away from the fact that, Denis Zakaria there, Arsenal for the last couple of years have potentially been screaming out for a more defensively minded midfield player. And based on just the heat map alone, that would suggest the right type of player in terms of his activity. Kamara could also potentially do, a similar job. And Bissouma, a player that we were heavily linked with in the summer as well. Not as deep as the other three. We seem to have discounted Wijnaldum a little bit because of his minutes. Mike, what are your thoughts on all of the information available to you?
I think you guys might be misreading these charts a bit because Kamara, he's a bit of a feather. I think the red marks are where he's fallen down and bled. And Zakaria's, that's the blood of his enemies because he is a specimen, knocking people down left and right. He is the problem with him for me is that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So I love the way that he gets around. I love the way that he puts his body on people, which makes me feel like he's the best suited of the bunch for the Premier League. And in a perfect world, I would bring him and Bruno in because I know we're going to be a little light in the midfield. I'm sure Elneny's going to move along. I know we'd love to move Xhaka along at some point, and Xhaka probably would love to move along. As he gets a little longer in the tooth, so to speak. The thing that's most impressive here is that Bissouma gets around so much. First of all, he did spend some time with Prison FC, so I don't know if those numbers are included here because I don't see the cell, but there's probably a big red dot there. But that said, the Premier League is a less free-flowing league, and this man is moving around like a monster. So, before he had his off-field troubles, a lot of us would have been talking about Bissouma. But I don't know. I think like his strongest relationship with players on our club is with, out of favor Pepe. So I don't know. There's a lot of reasons to not bring Bissouma in. And I think the reason that he will never be an Arsenal player under Arteta is that he's an off-field distraction, and Arteta hates that. So
he does. And that is something that's been very clear, hasn't it, since he's taken over, the whole big ego problem that was at the club, the type of culture that he's changed quite successfully during this sort of 2.5 year transitional period. I absolutely agree with you. So it seems as though at the moment, the first three are the three that we're looking to potentially target and talk about the most in today's show. Up next, I've got some very basic information available to talk about in each of their respected league campaigns. Now, I appreciate that goals and assists might not necessarily be the most important stat that we will talk about today for the reasons why we want to bring a central midfield player in. But at the end of the day, if they are areas that our midfield players can chip in with, it's only going to be looked at as a positive. Initially, from my point of view, Bruno Guimaraes, straight away, most starts, most minutes compared to everyone else. The other two that we've been speaking about, not too far behind him, and that's what we want. We want consistency in performances. We don't want injured players. We don't want players that are on the fringes of the team for the wrong reasons. Discipline-wise, no real concerns for me at all. Neil, I haven't come to you first yet, so not much information to go on. But what do you take from the information you can see on screen? Any positives, any negatives? Talk to me.
Definitely. I think putting Bruno aside, because I think he's a conversation by himself. I really like what I'm seeing here from Zakaria. I'm gonna call him Zakaria, and please, people in the comments, go ahead and rip me apart if you'd like. I'll get the name correct one day, but I like his numbers, because I believe, they always say, strikers win you games, but a defense win you a title. And if you have someone in your defensive midfield that can contribute in goals and assists, yes, his yellow cards are quite high, but again, with his age, I think that's something that you can try to control. I mean, we have Granit Xhaka, who picks up a red card if he sweats. So I like that very much from this guy. So my mind already, as great as Bruno looks, I agree with Mike. I think we're looking for someone to balance the team and allow Partey to get some freedom. And I think he might be the ideal person for that position, and bringing him in. Just one other thing as well, just to try to make this make sense as well with this January window. I also see us being very strongly linked to Wijnaldum, because I think it makes sense to get him in and maybe go after a Zakaria in the summer. But I think those two are going to be our two top targets, and you're hearing it here first on We Are the Arsenal.
No, you make some good points though, because sometimes the players that are out of contract in the summer, they don't always want to move in January. They're quite happy to finish off the season, maybe sign a pre-contract, and depending on whether or not you want to believe the news that broke earlier from David Ornstein that Arsenal are really pushing now to sign Vlahovic from Fiorentina, funds may not necessarily be available in January given the amount of money we spent in the summer to go out and spend another 30, 40, 50 million on a central midfield player.
Exactly.
But in saying that, we are light in midfield. There are players in midfield who will no longer be at the club in the summer. So between January and the summer, I think Arsenal will probably need to sign at least 2 central midfield players. At least, yeah. Keith, definitely. What do you make of all the information available to you?
The first thing that sticks out to me is Bruno's yellow cards. He's getting like 1 yellow card every 8 games or so, which is phenomenal. I don't really watch much French football, so I don't know how physical it is. The thing is with him, we all know how difficult it is getting players in the January window. Lyon are currently 13th, I think, in Ligue 1, but they're still in the Europa League. And he's kind of their talisman, so I would be very surprised if we got our grubby little mitts on him in January, which kind of moves us towards someone like Wijnaldum. If we were to get him, I'd only want him as a loan with a view to fill in the gap until we get who we need in the summer. Yeah. Going back to Bruno, you could look at it one of two ways. You look at how he plays. He is very, very similar to Partey, and you could be of the mindset that 2 similar central midfielders doesn't work, or you could be of the mindset that if they're intelligent enough footballers who can communicate with one another well enough, they can both pivot. One can sit, one can go, and they should be able to recognise the signs after they build up a rapport. So there could be that to it. I'd like to say Boubacar Kamara has got the best name out of this lot by far. I love the name Boubacar. That's absolutely brilliant. If you're looking at somebody who's going to complement Thomas Partey, I would probably go with him, purely because he seems to sit much more and be much less fuss. As I said earlier, there's not as much going forward with him. But Zakaria, watching him, do you know who he reminded me of? Abu Diaby. Reminded me so much.
Ooh, the player that
Too
never
slow.
was.
Too slow.
And do you know what? Without the injuries, I mean, he was a phenomenal player. And I would like to say the best injury he ever got was when he broke his foot on John Terry's face. I'd take that, to be honest. That's brilliant. But I've digressed massively again there. For me, it's still between the three guys on the left. As far as Bissouma, yeah, he's proven in the Premier League, and he is a monster. If we were going to get him, we would have got him in the summer. There's obviously stuff there, and I don't even know if the sexual assault allegations have been dropped yet, or if it's been extended. He's got a bond of some sort. I was having a look earlier to see if anything had come up from that. That alone, like Mike and Neil have both said, Arteta's not going to go for him for that. But there's another thing with the ego, and he came out saying that he believes he's the best midfielder in the world. That's a little bit Lord Bentner for me. Do you remember when he said what he said? I could be the best striker in the world. I don't
Greatest striker that ever
personality. I don't think he's the one for us. Phenomenal athlete, absolutely brilliant athlete.
Oh yeah.
But Ben White said it himself after he signed. The diligence that Edu and Arteta went through, like so long, they look at everything. It's not just your playing capabilities. It's about the other stuff that you bring, not even on the field, behind the scenes, how you the camaraderie that can be grown. And we've all seen that. How you said it yourself earlier, Jake, how he's got rid of that element of our dressing room, and it's now seems to be a really, really happy place where everyone's going to fight for each other. I don't know if somebody like him would upset the apple cart. If it went for his personality and his character flaws, brilliant, absolutely brilliant defensive midfielder. But there's more to it than that, I think.
Yeah, from a purely footballing point of view, I don't think there are any question marks over his ability. But it's not just that we need to focus on when bringing in a player. There's a lot more to it than just that. Mike, what do you make of the information available to you at the moment?
I mean, I just want to talk about Abu Diaby for a second because I want to talk about him every chance I get. We were robbed of probably the greatest midfielder we've ever seen. I mean, he was definitely the heir to Vieira's throne. He came in and just played extraordinary football for us. And the reason that we're in this mess right now is partially because of that injury debt. A guy like that doesn't walk through the door, and it's really hard to replace someone like him, replace someone like Jack Wilshere, and replace someone to a lesser extent like Santi Cazorla. So that's why we're having the conversation that we're having at the moment. I think Zakaria reminds me a bit more, with no disrespect to Keith, of Boubacar Soumaré from Leicester, who is in his own quality midfielder who can boss and get around and put his body on people. And I think he would make an excellent addition to our club. I just, when you look at these guys and you look at Kamara, I worry a bit about him going to ground. And I think that's why he gets so many yellows. His legs get mixed up with people, and he's really like in there like Lucas Torreira on the ground, making tackles, and he's a quality player. I do worry about the way that he plays and whether that adapts to the Premier League.
He's a bit raw, isn't he, compared to the others?
Another point that I wanted to make, Keith, is that you said you don't watch a lot of French league. I do. And let's just put it this way. Matteo Guendouzi scores goals, and he looks surprised when he does it, but it just tells you how fluid the game is. He gets forward, he gets into the box, he scores goals. And so the game is a lot more open. And you have to take that into account when you look at these players and say, can they take the punishment? Can they take the speed? Can they take that? And I think I don't worry about that from Zakaria, because I think he'll intimidate physically. And so even if he's not quite fast enough he'll still be that steely person that we need. I just don't see him covering as much ground that way. I think he's going to have to, I think he's going to get more yellows, and he's going to get probably more reds, because he'll be frustrated, at least from the get-go. The best part about Bruno is that, bringing someone like him in and putting him next to Partey, you take the big R, the reputation of Granit Xhaka, and you push that aside. And we're never going to be able to get past that as long as Xhaka's there. There's always going to be Xhaka sweats and he gets a red, like Neil said, and that's always going to happen. I mean, referees say, "Oh, that's Granit. He does that stuff." I don't really know where it comes from. I mean, yes, he's made a few bad tackles, but I don't think he deserves the reputation that he has. He just has it, and it's not going away.
No, it isn't. It isn't going away at all. Okie dokie. So before we move on to the next slide, a question coming in here from 95 Winston. As far as I'm aware, I've had to bring up his injury record. He's only had one major injury during his career back in the 2019-20 season, a knee injury that kept him out for pretty much the whole season, 246 days. Apart from that, he's just had the odd sort of niggling injury that's kept him out over the last couple of years, 9 days here, 5 days there. Knee problem seems to be a reoccurring one though, but take that with a pinch of salt. Yeah. I'm not too sure how reliable that information is from what you can find online. Okay, so we're going to jump in a little deeper now with some information available. This is more targeted towards midfield players, and the green ones are the highest in the category, the black ones are the lowest in the category. Again, this is in their league campaigns per 90 minutes. So Bruno Guimaraes, for example, he makes 7.2 ball recoveries per 90 minutes, loses possession 14.4 times. He attempts 74.9 passes, completing 87% of them, so on and so forth. So that's how the information on screen works in this next section. The boys have had this information prior to coming on the show, so hopefully we've got some good opinions to share on the players. And this is where things can potentially start to change, because this is why we sign a player, why we avoid a player potentially. So I'm going to come back to you straight away on this one, Mike. What are your thoughts? Any red flags there on certain players that we've been talking about, or any surprises even for players that we've discounted?
The biggest surprise here is that Zakaria's air game is pretty brutal compared to his height. I mean, he's the tallest of the players here by probably 3 inches, but he's probably the heaviest too. His vertical leap doesn't seem to be as strong as it could be. That 51% there doesn't impress me. So I think that's a thing that we can't expect him to be the hold-up guy that we'd like in the midfield. So we'll have to get a tall striker, I suppose. In terms of again, Bruno just shines here. I'm not even worried about his numbers that are in the black. They're not that bad to me. It suggests that he could play deep. He could also play forward. So again, that all actionness about him is really, really exciting. And, I mean, looking at chance creation, that is a bonus out of a central midfielder. And Keith said it earlier that he really finds those passing lanes. And I think he gets a little bit lucky because, again, it's the French league. There's a bit more space. And I don't see him. I see him having a Dani Ceballos awakening in the early days, when he's trying to make those passes forward and hold the ball. He would hold the ball too long, and you try to make those passes into channels, and they'd just be shut down immediately. And fortunately, Danny's good enough to he was good enough to overcome that and then create a whole list of new problems for himself. But I love Dani Ceballos, by the way. I'd take him back in a heartbeat as a fifth midfielder. But that said, I'm not worried about Bruno adapting because he's young and he seems really smart too. So, and Kamara's numbers again. There's nothing here that if we sign him, I'd be pretty happy with those numbers.
Yeah, the numbers are really, really, really good. Some of the ones that stand out for me, at least, chances created by Bruno compared to everyone else for the role that he typically plays for Lyon was one that surprised me in a good way. Passing across the board really for all of these midfield players is exceptional, all up in the high 80s or early 90s, which is really, really, really good to see. And ground duels as well. Good numbers there. Bruno Guimaraes, nearly 14 ground duels per game, winning over 50% of them, which is really, really, really good numbers. Coming to you next,
Kamara,
Keith.
Though, right there with him. Right there.
Yeah, Kamara's there. Yeah,
right
literally
there
those same three names keep popping up, don't they? So, Keith, what are your thoughts?
First thing I'm looking at, for a start, we talk quite a lot about this model, the profile of the player that they're looking for. 23 or under. I don't think that's so essential in this role. I think we need somebody, even if they are 25, 26, as long as they've still got plenty of miles in their legs, we need that bit of experience. Otherwise, you may as well just stick with Sambi. We need somebody who's got that added experience. And when you look at the ages of these players, obviously Wijnaldum is the oldest, and his possession lost figures are the best by quite a stretch there. And Bruno's are pretty poor. But Bruno's playing for a side who are 13th in the French league. Georginio Wijnaldum is playing with Kylian Mbappe, Neymar, and all the rest of them. I would have thought his assist would be a lot higher, because basically all you've got to do is pass the ball forward on that side, and you've got a pretty good chance of getting a goal at the end.
Yeah.
Keith, I think you mean he's not playing with Mbappe and Messi, and
it could be that, yeah. And also he's played much fewer minutes than everyone else.
Has, yeah, you are right.
Less opportunities to actually give the thing away. Same as you, Jake. I mean, the passing of all of them is absolutely fantastic. I love Bruno's ground duels. Interceptions for Bissouma is the highest. But again, if it was down to me, I wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. So as far as I'm concerned, he's not even in the equation for me. But having said that, it's not my money, so they can do what they want with it. Chances created again. I get what Mike was saying about it's a much more open league, and it's not as ferociously contested as the Premier League or even Bundesliga. Zakaria is probably one to look at to see who could potentially slot into the Premier League with more ease than anyone else, especially of the three that we seem to be looking at, because it's the most similar league to what we've got. But still, for me, Bruno's in front.
Keith, let me ask you a question. And sorry, Jake, I know this is usually what you do, but if you look at Bruno's chances created and you go back to his heat map for a moment, do you think he's creating enough chances for the amount of time he gets forward? I mean, he's literally carrying the ball toward the box a lot.
But you've got chances created. Does that mean a chance that is created and ends in a shot? Because I know I don't watch French football, but I know Lyon are not doing especially well. So he could be making the moves. He could be playing the balls. A bit like when Aubameyang was playing up front. We weren't creating anything. And I was saying back then, he's the reason why we weren't creating chances. And now look at us. So it could be sticking another side. His chance creation could be much higher.
Absolutely. Very, very good points. It sometimes depends who you've got around you. Neil, what are your thoughts? You've had the longest now out of everyone to read this information, so I'm hoping you'll come out with the best answers now.
I've been stewing on it, but as you always say, Jake, you take these numbers with a pinch of salt, and with their respective leagues, and no disrespect to any league at all. They're all professional. Certain leagues allow you more time and space on the ball. And, with possessions lost like that, 14.4, and then you look at a heat map that's riddled in red, you wonder, is it that he's carrying the ball? Is it that he's trying to win the ball back? Those types of questions pop in my head. Whereas Zakaria, he seems to be a lot more balanced. Green is good, I get it. 79.4, 87% pass. That's all well and fine. But when it comes to the similarity, as Keith just pointed out, in terms of leagues, Bundesliga is closest to ours. And I just look at Zakaria's numbers, and I just, I think he seems to be, in my opinion, at least, the best fit player for our current squad, and exactly what we need as a defensive centre mid.
Yeah. And it all comes down to what Arteta wants from this new signing, because they all offer different things from midfield. We can't sit here and say that all 5 players on screen now are the same type of midfield player, because they're just not. And Tom makes a very good point here, just to bring his comment back up. We shouldn't really discount Wijnaldum too much.
Absolutely not.
Only on the basis that he's got the most experience. I don't think a permanent signing would be what Arsenal go for in this sense. And going back to what I mentioned earlier, if Arsenal do go out and buy Vlahovic from Fiorentina, which could be as much as 50-60 million plus Torreira, I don't think we're going to have the money. I think it's going to be a case of bringing in a loan and Wijnaldum from the list in front of us.
Guys, come on. I'm getting strong Willian vibes here. I mean, he's 31 years old. He's been training and not playing. I
don't know. I feel I get
it's
what
not
he's
necessarily
saying
the player that I want, but more a case of what makes more financial sense to the club. If it's a big if we were to get Vlahovic. If we didn't, then I'd expect Arsenal to go and spend money elsewhere and not get Wijnaldum.
If there is truth to the Vlahovic rumours and we are going in for him, it's basic economics. If we get him, then we're not going to be able to shell out 30, 40, 50 million on a central midfielder in this window. And I'd still say I'll be very surprised if we get any of these guys other than a loan deal in January. I don't think that Leon will let Bruno go.
In my opinion, I see Wijnaldum being our go-to option for right now as a loan, because it seems as if we're going in for a striker, and with those type of monies to be spent on a striker, it just makes complete sense.
Oh my God, you guys, we're going to end up with Wilshere.
That's possible.
It's going to be Jackie.
Jackie. It's going to be interesting. It is. Look, we've got to look at our owners as well, haven't we? They've not been. I know they spent a lot of money in the summer for the first time in a long time since they've even been involved at the club. I just can't. If we buy Vlahovic, and then, if the rumours are true, and Bruno Kamara is the one they want to go for, which is another near £40 million. That's nearly another £100 million spent in January.
They could be doing what they did with Aouar, which is testing the waters now, seeing what he's going to cost, making it clear that there's an intention there. Because it takes a long time to do business with Lyon. They're terrible to do business with. As
horrible.
And
yeah, they are.
And then you have at the end, Aouar's agent his brother trying to fleece us. Yeah. So I mean, you just don't know what you don't know when it comes to them. So starting now could be setting us up for the summer and a summer signing of Bruno.
It wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me at all. And again, Tom, with another really, really good point. Over the last few weeks, we have been seeing some of the youngsters train with the first team. Not to say they're going to be playing in the Premier League every week, but players like Charlie Patino, for example, Amaro Hutchinson, and the young lad Salah are all thought of very highly within the Arsenal team. So, cup games coming up. We'll see if they get their opportunity.
Right. And to Keith's point earlier, he was talking about just sticking with Sambi, but we need all these players. We're going to be in the Champions League next season, so you're going to need a lot of depth. So it makes sense to bolster now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, indeed.
We're laughing Super Jack off because Jack hasn't played a Premier League game. Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
It's an interesting one with Jack because he trained with the first team for quite a while, didn't he? But I can't see it happening. I can't see it. He had done the advert the other day, didn't he? With was it Paddy Power? I don't know if everyone's seen it. Free, available, fit. Come and get me. Not Tottenham. So I'd imagine if Arsenal were going to sign him up on a 6-month deal, it would have happened by now. But moving into the next section, we've got some graphs here, which outline attacking ability, creativity, defending, tactical nous, and technical ability. And this is information that's been collated over a 2-year period. And then underneath, which is the bit that you need to take with a pinch of salt, is information collected from several different websites stating the strengths in green and weaknesses in red of these 5 players. Sorry. A lot of information to take in. Again, some people are saying we need a more defensively minded player. Kamara and Bissouma are in the green there in that respect. From a technical point of view, Bruno Guimaraes ticks a lot of boxes. So does Zakaria, but not so much Kamara. So, like I said in the last slide, these players are not all the same type of midfield player. So it very much comes down to the player that Arteta wants. And we won't know the answer to that question until he signs someone. But coming to you first, Keith, what are your thoughts on some of the strengths and weaknesses of the players that have been mentioned on screen at the moment?
So I always get a little bit distracted with these slides because it reminds me of playing Pro Evo a few years back when you're adjusting the skill ratings. And you look at Bissouma's like defensively, easily the best defensive stats there. Obviously, you got the discipline, which we discussed earlier. Wijnaldum, again, it's decent all round. It's decent. He probably is a bit of an upgrade on Xhaka. Yeah, I'll still look at. To be honest, Boubacar looks quite good on this slide as well. He's probably more or less got the best holistically rounded form there, and he's got no red. Just going back a little bit to a lot of comments about bringing the younger players in. That's all well and good, but we need to be looking at a central midfielder now.
Yes.
These young lads, they've got all the talent in the world, and they will, I've got no doubt, be absolutely world class. Especially Charlie Patino and probably Amari Hutchinson as well. But they are not ready for this right at this moment. So they probably need to be discounted. Like we said, we're looking at somebody with experience who can fill this hole, because I would hate to see us be in a situation where maybe the next league game we have to put Charlie Patino in alongside Granit Xhaka, and we're playing Spurs.
Yeah,
that's not going to. He might do absolutely brilliantly, but he's still a kid, and his body's not ready for that over the course of time. But looking at these, I'm liking the look of Boubacar here, to be honest.
Yeah, he does look good. He does look really, really good. Very, very well-rounded, and certainly more of a defensively minded player. And Jim makes a very good point here. He was previously a centre-back, and he has slowly been converted into the midfield role that he plays now. So if Arteta and Edu are looking for more of a defensive midfield player, he could potentially be a slightly better fit. Neil, coming to you next. What excites you on screen at the moment? Or concerns you?
Concentration for Zakaria, but I guess that's a result of the yellow cards as a result of that. Shows that side of his game. But I don't know, man. I feel like it's going back to what Scott said in the last show. Sometimes it just comes down to the eye test with these guys, and we, as you said, they're all different types of midfielders. Yes, they play in the same area, but they have different types of features to their game. Now, I recall that we have a player out on loan that's a centre midfield that has featured in the first team a few times, and that's Miguel Aziz. I know I've seen him play. I've seen him, drop his shoulder and, eliminate 3 players out of the game, which I believe is something that we should probably look at. If we want to go and get and just tie up things with Vlahovic, we might as well just go and focus on him and look to bring a player like Aziz, who has experience in the first team and the Premier League, as opposed to going out and maybe looking at a Wijnaldum just
pre-season experience in the Premier League.
Pre-season, but potato.
Okay.
I think the problem you've got with the youth situation at the moment is when you look at the way Saka came into the first team, mainly around injuries, when he came in at left back. When we had Smith Rowe, who came into the first team, he'd been out on loan twice before at Huddersfield, and I can't remember the German team that he was out on loan at before that.
RB Leipzig. That's
the one. So they both, he had previous experience, and again, there was that huge lack of creativity that we had in the Arsenal team. So it was very circumstantial as to the reason why these youngsters came into the Arsenal team. We also have to take into consideration that Arsenal were playing in the Europa League for 2 or 3 years at this point. And when we'd already qualified and we were playing against, with all due respect, some very terrible football teams, it was the perfect opportunity for players like, Balogun, who hasn't done it in the Arsenal team yet, but when he played in the Europa League, was it last year or the year before, he got a couple of goals. So it's that fine balance. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing better than having a youngster from Highland break through and make a statement in the first team. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing better than that. But we have to, as Keith said, we've got to be realistic with it, because sometimes you can ruin a player. You can absolutely ruin a player by bringing a youngster in. And Aziz excites me, and as many as the others do as well. Mike, what are your thoughts, my friend, on the information?
Well, I mean, I want to just talk about some of the bringing up players for a second here. Aziz currently is playing with one of our favorite managers, Danny Cowley. And for those of you who don't know who Danny Cowley is, he's the guy who gave the Smith his chance at Huddersfield and really brought him along and got him the confidence to break into our club. So I love Danny Cowley. Aziz has had to fight his way into that lineup because there's a lot more pressure at Pompey to win right now, and he's a young player. He's not ready for the Premier League yet. He needs a championship loan. Probably he needs to first fight his way through this season because he just got himself into the starting lineup. He's doing well. He's gaining confidence. I wouldn't pull him out of there right now. He's on a good track for us. The next best player would be Omar Rekic in my mind, and he has no experience either. He's been playing as a center half, and he's been pushed into the defensive midfield. Again, a player that needs to be sent on loan, but has extraordinary upside. So, and then of course there's our Charlie, and we all know what he's capable of. We all also know that, as Keith said, he's got the body of of a boy. And when Emil didn't have his man body, look what happened to him in training and in the German league. He survived the season in the championship. I mean, he survived it because it's so rough and tumble there. And that is what gave him the confidence to make the move to the Premier League. So I wouldn't thrust Charlie right into the first team in a dogfight to qualify for the Champions League. So that's why we're trying to bolster in the first place here. We just don't have players that are ready to come in. I want Bruno and Zakaria, or Bruno and Kamara. I mean, that's what I want.
It definitely seems to be. Bruno's definitely number one at the moment, and then one of the other two, by the sounds of it. What
I
do you
do
like
not like
from
the
what you can see?
concentration problem though on Zakaria, and if that's it's a thing I've seen when I've watched him play for the Swiss team. I've seen a fair bit of Swiss football, not as much of Mönchengladbach, but it'd be kind of funny if he was on the Granit Xhaka path and he went from Gladbach to Arsenal and was like the Sith path where he murders Granit in his sleep and takes over for him. But, I think there's a lot to be excited about with that player, but there's also a lot to just worry about. Again, I worry about his size. I worry about his speed. I worry about also his decision making. He has a lot more time in the Bundesliga, and I feel like he is a tad slow. Now his pace is ridiculous. He bounds across the field like one stride is half the pitch. So Again, another way that like some smaller players are going to get Bissouma is going to destroy him. He's going to be running down the field, and Bissouma is going to slide him out, and he's going to be Abu Dhabi'd, and Bissouma will get no foul for it because Stuart Atwell will be the referee. That's what's going to happen. That's my fear with him. And so as good as he looks on paper and as good as he is in the Bundesliga, I just feel like he's way too tall for the position, and that we should pass on him.
Some good questions, some good problems to have, I suppose. Tom's mentioned something here about why do we have to loan everyone out. I wouldn't say we have to loan everyone out. I think it just depends on the timing of things. With Saka, for example, he didn't go out on loan to anywhere, did he? And he managed to break into the first team. And I think if we would have been in Europe this year, even if it was the Europa League or, God forbid, the Conference League, the youngsters would have had more game time, and it would have been more of a sort of natural progression, I suppose, into the first team, and maybe they wouldn't have had to have gone out on loan. But with Arsenal just playing in the Premier League at the moment, I think to bring in a youngster could be quite difficult.
Saka was light years ahead of others, though. That's why he made it into the team. There are question marks. If you watch the U23s, or at least the highlights of U23s, and I watch as much as I can, these players need to see more rodeos. They need to play more football at higher levels and see the speed of the game. Like Balogun is Saka level with no question, but he just doesn't have the experience. Everything that he does is way too easy for him, except for the Premier League. So put him in the Championship for a bit, get him some, get him. It's about the risk. And it's also about the risk to us of them playing for us, and then the pressure that someone like you, Tom, is going to put on them, and it's going to crush them. I don't want to see that happen to any of our starlets. I want them to be coddled. I want them to be prepared, and I want them to come in and destroy Manchester United and destroy Tottenham Hotspur when we play them. I mean, that's what I want to see when Charlie Patino takes the pitch. I want to see him murder Højbjerg. That's what I want to see happen, not the other way around. I don't want to see him get flattened. So that's why they need to go on loan. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
No, it's all good. It's all good stuff. And Balogun looks like he could be securing a loan move to Middlesbrough as of next week. So Scott's down in the chat as well. He was on our last show. So big yourself up, Scott. Go and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Some fantastic content, not just Arsenal related. So go look him up on YouTube. Really, really good content over there. Scott coming in with another comment as well with regards to the loan conversation that we were just having, followed by who he feels is most realistic as a stopgap given, well, potentially the Vlahovic situation, that being Gini Wijnaldum. Charlie, 10 minutes against Leicester. Yes, I expect Charlie Patino to get more minutes over the next 2 or 3 games as well in the cup competitions. I think he is definitely going to be in the squad on Sunday. Any other comments? Yes, he was at Huddersfield. That's right.
That Huddersfield game time was awesome. That was awesome. I mean, absolutely. And Emile was insane for Huddersfield, and the Huddersfield fans don't underestimate the confidence that the fans give you too. The Huddersfield fans took care of him like he grew up at Huddersfield, and they loved him so much and gave him so much confidence, pumped him up. Every time he touched the ball, they were just they were going gaga for him. It was awesome for him.
Well, let's hope they can show him some love. Not necessarily, but it's Middlesbrough. Some of the players we send there for the final 6 months of the season, because we need it. We do need it. Okie dokie. So we're going to move into the final slide of this evening's show. I didn't best explain it in the last show with regards to percentages. Which is what each of these are. People looked at them like it was the amount of goals that players had scored in a calendar year, which wasn't the case. So to just explain it this time, the information has been collated over the last 365 days, comparing it to other players in the same position. So central midfield in the top 5 leagues, which is the Premier League, the French League, the German League, Spanish League, and the Italian League, as well as the Europa League and the Champions League. Now, to give you an example, Bruno Guimaraes he sits in the top 81 percentile of players, which is a good thing. So the higher percentage, the better you are as a player in that particular field. The lower the percentage, the worse you are. So I hope everyone's with me on this one, because this is where it gets the most complicated. And I'm going to come to you first, Keith, on this one. What do you like from this slide? And you are on mute if you didn't know. What do you like from this slide?
I knew that, of course. Of course I knew that I was on mute.
Because Bissouma's got some fantastic defensive numbers.
He really has.
Whereas the other lads have got good numbers elsewhere. So just to explain two things here. We've got pressure successful. So that's situations where a player has applied pressure and won the ball back. And then dribble tackling, which is where someone has basically tried to take the ball past that player and they have won the ball in that scenario. So Keith, over to you.
Yves Bissouma, defensively, that's mental. Absolutely mental stats that he's got there. And if we're to pursue the pressing game, you would look at that and think, wow. But then you look at Boubacar, he's 1% off. We need somebody who can press, and we need to all press as a team. There was a couple of times I noticed against Man City at the start where Odegaard was actually swinging his arms, getting other people to press up with him, because obviously there's no point just one or two players pressing. So, he slots in. But Boubacar, I think, is he fits the mould really, really well. And I mean, the other end of the scale is you look at Bruno's assist and pass completion, but he's level with Boubacar.
Yeah,
and
tackles
I'm
as
very
well.
impressed with Bruno's tackles, to be honest. I don't know what's going on with Denis's tackling there. What's that, about 23%?
Yeah, not good.
Wijnaldum. It's difficult to read from his stats because obviously he's getting games, but he's not getting starts. What's he started, about 9 games this season?
Yeah, a lot of the appearances he's had has been off the bench. Yeah.
So from statistics, it's really, really difficult to gauge very much about his game at all. But Boubacar's looking quite good. But just going back to what was coming up in the comments just now with what Scott said, Wijnaldum probably is the most realistic choice at this point.
Yeah.
Like I keep saying, I'd be very surprised if we get Bruno in this window. Really, really surprised.
Very surprised.
Good numbers though, like you said, the Boubacar numbers are, in terms of the roundedness of a midfield player, he's very, very good in that regard. And being only 22, plenty of time to develop as well. But it just depends, isn't it? Does, like you said earlier, do you bring in that type of player and then, he's competing for a spot with Sambi, who wins that race? Or do you bring in, like you said, someone who's a bit, more experienced, maybe someone that Sambi can learn off of, someone who's going to start every week and make an instant impact? So
luckily it's not our decision to make, Jake.
Yes, absolutely. Coming to you next, Neil. What do you see here? What do you see positively? What do you see negatively? And you are on mute.
Sorry, the dog was barking. So
that's okay.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to know that because I would say Wijnaldum's numbers are skewed. Like, that's not his true numbers. We all know that. Like, he's been in the Premier League. We know that the type of player he is. So just going on that, I agree with Scott and Keith. I just think he's the most realistic midfield signing we can go for right now in terms of these numbers here, Jake, over a calendar year. It's insane to see that, Bruno is making, 81% successful assists. Is that 76 supposed to be black or green for key passes?
It is, yeah, it's supposed to be green.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would just, like, he's head and shoulders above everyone else, but again, they're all 5 different types of midfielders. So we can't really, it's not a just type of comparison to do side by side like that. But because it may not be each player's strong suit in different areas, assists, pass completion, key passes, they may not just be that type of player, but are stronger in defensive. Perfect example, the first and last on these 5 players. Look at Bissouma's defensive numbers versus Bruno's attacking numbers. It's it's just their type of game. So just to round things off, I would say Wijnaldum, January, make it happen, Arsenal. If you're watching.
Yeah, I think the problem that we have is what we want and what's likely to happen are two very different things. And I think we're all in agreement that probably Bruno is the player that we want to bring in, followed by maybe a Zakaria or Kamara. But
absolutely,
unfortunately,
we need to align our not what we want, but what we know is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Realistic expectations.
Exactly that, indeed.
Yeah.
And then finishing off with yourself, Mike. What do you think from the information available?
Well, Zakaria has fallen right off my list of people that I would even consider with these numbers. His passing is on a team that needs everybody to be passers. A team that plays out of the back like we do. He's going to definitely be the heir apparent to Xhaka. Ramsdale's going to pass one to him, and he's going to no-look pass it right to Will Zaha, who's going to score a game winner against us. I mean, that's what's going to happen. He's going to put it right into the path of Edouard.
Chris Wood
and Crystal Palace are going to nick one and win. I don't want to see that ever happen. So let's not do that. Let's not have him come in. I mean, again, while Wijnaldum might be the most, the most likely to happen or the easiest to get done, I don't know if it makes sense for us to go out, bring in another, veteran player who doesn't really have anything to prove at this point, to come in and mentor players and take a risk on something like that. I'd rather us do nothing almost. I think we can survive the AFCON. I think we can, we can survive the AFCON. We've got Samuel Lokonga. We have players that we can play if we need to. With COVID right now, if we decide to start playing the game everybody else is playing, we might even get a game or two postponed. So I don't know how urgent it is for us to bring in a midfielder.
Start going down the Liverpool route.
Yeah, if it's urgent for us to bring in a midfielder right at the moment. So I'd say we should get our man or we should get nobody.
Yeah, I think the other thing we need to take into consideration here, I'm going to bring the stats off screen quickly before we wrap things up for the day. It seems as though to me, and I don't know if everyone agrees with me, that Arteta is set on Vlahovic as his number one striker option, and I don't think Arsenal would be pushing for it as much right now had he not be out of contract in the summer, which means he can obviously go wherever he wants. There's a lot more competition for his signature. If we don't sign him in January, the other targets that are being sort of linked with Arsenal at the moment, like Isak, for example, Jonathan David, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, among others, those could potentially wait until the summer, and that means then that the central midfield position becomes more of a priority. So that's just my thoughts on it. But that is going to about wrap things up for today. What I'd like anyone still in the chat to do, if you wouldn't mind, is let me know who you want Arsenal to target in January, if we can. Has today's show changed your mind on what you wanted right back at the very beginning? I appreciate everyone coming along. Drop a like and subscribe if you're new around here. And I'm about to ask the panel the same exact question. So coming to you first, Mike. Who would you like to sign?
Who would I like to sign if I could sign anybody? I think we should go into the, trying to do business with Marseille would be with Marseille is a good idea. They actually have a bit of depth at defensive midfield. So looking at either, thanks, Judge. Appreciate that. I like my it's bird camp, actually. I think we should also look at the other defensive midfielder guy. He's he is also quite a boss in the midfield.
Absolutely. Keith, I'm going to come to you last because I know you have a little announcement that you'd like to make this evening.
Oh,
Neil, who
So-
would you like to sign? Has your answer changed?
I would like to sign Bruno. That's what I would like. However, I know the club. I understand our position and what we want. So I think it's gonna be Wijnaldum, bro. That's just what I feel. It's a gut feeling. That's just how it's gonna work out for us.
Yeah. Okay. Myself, I would like to sign Bruno Guimaraes, but I can't see it happening in January, unfortunately, unless Vlahovic isn't signed for whatever reason. But I do agree with you, Neil. I can just see it happening. Wijnaldum, or I think the other midfield show that we done, there was our tour that we spoke about. He was another one that was apparently able to.
Are you?
That's it. You've got us. You've got us, Jim. You've got us.
Oh, God's sake, right, I'm off. He's done it.
Are you gonna do another midfield show, Jake?
Well, the 10 midfield players that I've done over the last 2 midfield transfer shows are the 10 that have been most linked with Arsenal in the last sort of month or so. I've got another show lined up for next week, Wednesday, for 5 more strikers that have been linked with Arsenal. But apart from that,
Okay.
I think it's probably going to be player analysis on who we sign
No worries. Okay,
between
cool.
sort of Wednesday and the end of the month.
I had a wild card, but no worries.
We can sort something out.
Yeah.
We can sort something out. And then finally, Keith, before your announcement, same question. Who would you like to sign? Has it changed or?
Not really. Still Bruno, number 1. Boubacar Kamara would probably be my second choice. Zakaria seems to have fallen off much for the same reasons as Mike cited a couple of minutes ago. But again, the most realistic one, if Ornstein is to be believed, and this is actually going to be happening with Vlahovic, Wijnaldum or Arthur are probably the most likely ones to bring in. I can't believe they're not going to bring any reinforcements into the midfield after letting Ainsley go, because that makes no sense to me that whatsoever, unless they were selling him. But to go on loan, and is it right? There's no option on that either. So it's just
No option or
right?
obligation,
Yeah.
no. So
That's nonsensical, really. But yeah, Bruno, Boubacar, they're my boys.
good man. And I believe you got a little announcement as well.
I have. I'm pregnant.
Oh.
I don't want to talk about it. No, starting Sunday night, 9 o'clock. I'm starting to do my first ever live stream. I've been putting it off for ages. I've been thinking about it for ages. I've done like 40 pre-recorded videos on mostly Arsenal now, and I was going to do this a few months ago, but for a variety of technological reasons, I didn't. But yeah, I'm starting on this Sunday, and the first people ever to invite me onto a live stream are Cannon Chatter, and I'd always said when I start doing it, you'll be the first ones that come on. So I'm very fortunate that I got Stephen G and Latte all coming on Sunday night. So yeah, if you fancy watching a show of amateurish ineptitude, then tune in Sunday night. I'll be dropping the link on Twitter anyway, probably tomorrow. But yeah, cheers for that, Jake. Appreciate it.
No, not a problem at
Actually,
all.
while I'm about it, talking about live streams, something needs to be said. Right, anyone that's done stuff like this will understand there's a fair amount of work involved. I mean, my prep that I do for mine is literally minimal. I'll spend about half hour looking at some stuff, and most of it I'll just wing it. But I know for a fact the stuff you put into this, Jake, is a phenomenal amount of work. And I just think those who may not be aware need to know how much you put into this.
Yes.
It's not like you sit at home all day doing nothing. You know, you've got a job, you've got a missus, you're a dad. So I just think full credit to you, mate. This is it's a real undertaking.
Oh, no, thank you very much. Really, really do
No worries.
appreciate that. It is tough. It is tough, but we love it. And I appreciate you guys coming on and, sharing the experience with me and everyone in the chat as well. It's really, really, really good fun. And
Jake, before we sign off, can I ask you?
Yes, of course.
Can I ask you one question, please?
yeah, sure.
Do you go out in public in that hat? And did I, whatever the person told you about that hat, I think it was a lie.
Like, because it's Yankees.
Oh.
This is the hat. This is my streaming hat. This is underneath. I've got no hair underneath. But yeah, it's my streaming hat.
I mean, it's this close to wearing a United hat, I'm telling you.
Rightio then. So I've got everyone's details down in the chat below in regards to their YouTube channels and their Twitter pages. Mike, I don't believe you've got anything apart from a Twitter page. Is that right?
Yeah, just go to my Twitter page if you want to find me and insult me or ask me questions. Or if you want me to, sell an unhappy supporter, I am the self-appointed Arsenal Director of Support, and I sold Piers Morgan to Barry Football Club because I figured he couldn't make them any more miserable than they already are. And today we actually moved Pretty Patel on as well. So
I was going to mention that.
Same club. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you all very much for coming along to this evening's stream. As I said before, drop a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and we will be back, I think, maybe either Sunday or Monday evening to review the Nottingham Forest game, hopefully after a win. And until then, take care and enjoy.